Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Colton. I like to talk about Bibles, books, and theology-related things. And today, I got a question for you as we get into this Bible review. Have you ever wondered, whenever a translation committee comes together to translate the scriptures from the Greek and Hebrew and some Aramaic into our modern English, have you ever wished you could be like a fly on the wall in that room? I know I have. Like, what are they thinking? How are they processing this? I would love to be able to understand their process for coming up with the translation that they're coming up with. Well, they've helped us with that. Thomas Nelson has sent me a copy of this Bible. It's the Net Bible Full Notes Edition, NET, which stands for New English Translation, in brown genuine leather. And this Bible is unique because it's not like your typical study Bible, although I would wager it probably has more notes than a typical study Bible, because all of the notes are centered around getting you into the mind of the translators and how they came up with the English translation that they did. I think this is an invaluable resource, and you're going to see that it's jam-packed full of stuff, and I can't wait to share it with you. So let's take a look at it together, shall we?
I fix my eyes on Christ.
All right, guys, so here's the box. I know I got a complaint about showing the box recently, but I think some of you guys still like it. So here's the box, and a heads up, I have done a review of the NET before in the full notes, but it's been a while, and this is a newer addition to me, the brown leather, so I figured it'd be worth taking a look at and going over again. So it has 59,074 translators' notes, the largest set ever created. So this is really cool. Provide complete transparency to every major translation decision so you can see the detail and nuance of Scripture for yourself. And this is the brown leather. So you get an idea here of the layout and what it looks like. Here's the price of this one, about $140 when it's retail, but likely you'll be able to get this particular one for cheaper than that. And they also have it in hardback and leather soft and some other editions. So thank you, Thomas Nelson, by the way, for sending this out for a fair and honest review. All right, so let's look at the Bible itself. As you can see, it's this nice dark brown leather. We have some perimeter stitching around it that's kind of just a lighter brown color. Kind of grainy feeling, which is nice. It feels really nice. Here's the spine. You see Net Bible Full Notes Edition, and then here's their logo for the NET, which is pretty cool. And Thomas Nelson. Here's the back, and you can see the numbers printed on the back. Not my favorite. I'll always say it just because it's a true opinion. So, yeah, and then they include two ribbons, which are very nice, thick, double-sided ribbons. Thomas Nelson is killing it on the ribbon game, and they have been for a while. You get some great ribbons here. If I had one critique, it would just be I wish that there were one more, because this is such a big Bible. So to have like at least three would be cool. But hey, I'm not going to complain too much because the ribbons are great. So at least they're not cruddy ribbons. Then we get a gold gilding on it. Looks really nice. Let's pop it open and take a look inside. All right, so you do get a paste down liner. This is a really nice paste down liner, though. It feels kind of more like a vinyl-y sort of material. Presentation page. There's like an introduction page or a title page. And then here we get to the publishing info. And you can see it was printed in South Korea. You get a table of contents. from the Net Bible team to the reader. Overview of the features. Just really cool. They just tell you how to use it. And there's the translation team. A lot of folks from Dallas Seminary, I believe, on this. And then there's an Old Testament title page with their cool little mark here. And then, whoa, look at that. You can see. Now, not every page is going to look like this, but you can see on here, like, this is the text, right? This is 2 verses in Genesis. And you have all of these notes about how they went about translating these 2 verses from Hebrew into English. And the way you kind of find out how to look or where to look as you're reading the text, you'll see these capital letters. So there's a capital letter here after the word beginning. And then you can follow that over and find where that capital letter is over here. And you see it here, which on this one it says, and I'll just read a little bit of it. The translation assumes that the form translated beginning is in the absolute state rather than the construct, in the beginning of, or when God created. In other words, the clause in verse 1 is a main clause. Verse 2 has 3 clauses that are descriptive and supply background information, and verse 3 begins the narrative sequence proper. The referent of the word beginning has to be defined from the context since there is no beginning or ending with God. So that's the kind of information you're getting here. You're getting into the mind of these translators, and every time you see a little capital letter, find it, and they're going to tell you how they came to the conclusion that they came to. And you see here's some more of it. You can see some pages are larger than others, but you get this single column of text, which is your biblical text, and then these 3 columns of notes. Truly an incredible resource. I highly recommend you have it just to get in the mind of Bible translators. It's very cool. Let's try and find some poetry. Here we go. We got some Psalms, and they still do like a poetic break here for the Psalms. So a more verse-by-verse line break situation. There's Jeremiah. I'm not going to spend a ton of time because this is the basis of it. This is why you want this Bible, is these notes. The paper is pretty thin. I mean, it's got a lot of information in it. The ghosting looks much worse on camera than it does in person. It's still very legible, but there is some ghosting. I'm not going to tell you there isn't. Let's get into the New Testament here. And here we have the Gospel of Matthew. And as you can already see from this, that there is no red lettering in this Bible. This is a black letter text Bible. Romans, and then once we get towards the back here, let's get to Revelation. There's Revelation, and then when you get to the end of Revelation, you have some principles of translation, abbreviations for biblical books and non-biblical literature, general abbreviations, and this is just to help you understand some of the notes and other things that are in there. If you're curious about what one of these things means, you can find it here in the back. Lists of cited works. This is very scholarly, as you can tell. They've really done a great job of crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. And then abbreviations and introduction to principal manuscript evidence for the Greek New Testament. Hebrew and Greek translation. And this just gives you some basic understanding here of what's going on. So you have the Hebrew alphabet like over here. You have some of the vowel markers here. And then some for the Greek here. Really cool. And then you get maps in the back. And they're nice, good looking maps. And then that's the end of it. And then you have one other vinyl piece here for the liner. So that's it, guys. I think this is a really cool Bible, really unique, and worth adding to your library just for the scholarly value alone. They're really helping us get into the mind of the translator, and I think, like I said, that is so valuable. So if you're interested in the Net Bible, I'll have some links down below. I also want to mention to you that the notes are available, I believe, for free online. So if you don't want to buy a physical copy of this, you still can have access to this information. Very cool. Thank you guys so much for watching today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up or comment. That really helps and it's appreciated. And if you really liked it, subscribe to see more content kind of like this. Yeah, that's going to do it, guys. Thanks. I'll see you in the next video.